ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय Ramakrishnaaya te namaha. We shall now begin the class with the chanting one of the meditation verses. Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramarthanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. There is a small announcement, dear devotees. Please note that the live chat has been enabled for this video. If you have any questions relating to this discourse, please type it in the live chat and I will try to respond to them at the end of today's discourse or next week's discourse. I request that please only use this live chat if you have any questions. Thank you. Now, we shall today discuss from the 60th verse of the second chapter. So the 60th verse of the second chapter will be taken up today. We will discuss on that. So we shall chant that verse and then go to the simple meaning and then go to the deeper aspect of that verse. I think the verse is displayed on the screen. You can chant that after me. I know that you also will be having the book Bhagavad Gita. Either way, we shall chant it. I'll make it easy for you to chant. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. The Blessed Lord said, Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. Now, going to the simple meaning of this verse. Before the simple meaning, we will take up the word by word meaning too, so that it will be easier for us to understand. Yatataha, of the striving, he, indeed, api, even, Kaunteya, son of Kunti or Arjuna, Purushasya, of the man here, of person or the human being, whoever for that sake, who is striving to control his senses, it may be a man or woman. Vipaschitaha, of the wise. Indriyani, the senses. Pramathini, turbulent. Haranti, carry away. Prasabham, violently. Manaha, the mind. So that is the word to word meaning. We saw it. So now we shall go to the simple meaning. The excited senses, O son of Kunti, impetuously carry away the mind of even a wise man striving for perfection. The excited senses, O son of Kunti, impetuously carry away the mind of even a wise man striving for perfection. Treacherous are the senses. They are as impetuous as wild horses newly harnessed. Riding on them is risky to life. The major portion of the spiritual discipline to which an aspirant subjects himself is actually the warfare that he carries on with the wayward senses. Innumerable are the defeats that he suffers at their hands at the initial stage. Repentance, so much spoken of by a section of theologians as a means to win the mercy of the Maker, that is the Lord. We repent, isn't it, when we do mistake? So repentance, so much spoken of by a section of theologians as a means to win the mercy of God or the Maker, is nothing other than the moral man chewing the cud of the rebuffs and reverses that he has had from the restive senses. Conquest of the senses is the means for the attainment of excellence here, that is for this world, and hereafter, that is for the next worlds. The refinement of an individual or a society is measured, whether it is a country, whether it is a society, whether it is an individual, a human being. The refinement of an individual or a society is measured by the yardstick of number of people who have attained the self-control. Now let us hear something about the self-control of difficulties by the lips of the great avatar Sri Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna tells people who live in localities infested with venomous creatures should always be alert and mindful of the dangers. Even so, people intent on spiritual growth should guard themselves against indulgent senses tainted with lust and greed. These are the words of Sri Ramakrishna. Now, we have learned the simple meaning of this verse about the control of the senses, and also which is dealing about the control of the mind. So now here Krishna is telling it's not so ordinary, it's not so easy to control the mind. So now let us go forward and get hints from the words of Krishna how we can control this mind, what are the ways, how are we to be careful about it, how the mind deceives us, that senses, how they drag us. Even the wise man, even the man of strong can be tempted. Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitah indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. The turbulent senses of even a wise man, while striving, indeed forcibly carry away his mind. Kaunteya, we all know, is Arjuna, the son of Kunti. Krishna cautions Arjuna. Now, different places, different words are used. Now, Arjuna is addressed as Bharata, Gudakesha, and so many other epithets are given to Arjuna by Lord Krishna. So each that epithet, the words Lord Krishna is using indicates something special connected with the topic. Now Kaunteya is the son of Kunti. Mother Kunti, the name of the mother is mentioned because the soft heart, the son of Kunti will have a soft heart or very easygoing way in controlling the senses. So Arjuna is being warned. You should be strong here. Here you should be like a lion. You should not be weak. So you should be strong. That is the idea. Krishna cautions Arjuna about the devastating nature of the sense organs. The human senses push the individual towards the world of sense objects. Our senses, we have so many senses. We all know that we have 5 senses, sense organs. The human senses push the individual towards the world of sense objects. Correspondingly, Now the sight, our eyes is one of the sense organ. For that the sense objects is shown to us through the light. So many things of the sense object to the eyes are there in the world which will attract the colors, it will tempt him. So the mind is always dragged by our senses to this world. The human senses push the individual towards the world of sense objects, and the sense object pull. So the sense organs push the individual, our ego. We have identified ourselves with this ego. So that will be pushed outside to go and meet the world of the sense objects. Together with that, with the pull, there is another pull. This is the push by the senses. Our individuality, our ego, our mind will be pushed outside to the world of sense objects. And the sense objects also have that pull, attraction. It will drag it out, drag our individual, drag this ego, drag this mind towards itself. And the sense objects pull the individual towards the world, outside world. Now, this both the things, senses, our sense organs, the five sense organs, push, and the sense object pull. Two forces are acting. You are torn by this push and pull. So this push and pull, we are torn between them. There is a funny saying in India, because in olden days they used to, for grinding purposes, the grinding stone would be there. There would be a heavy stone on the top with a wooden hook or something to hold it, easy to grind it. Then below there will be the stone vessel like shape where the materials which are to be grinded are put, and they used to grind it like this, grinding stone. So the object may be whatever you put, the grains or the rice or whatever which you are put to grinding. So between these two stones, the upper bigger stone, heavy stone, and the lower holding that stone cup like thing, vessel like thing, between them, so the grains or whatever, the vegetables or whatever you put there to grind, so caught between these two, it will become chutney, pasted. So like that, we individuals getting in between these push and pull of the senses and the sense objects. So pramatini, we will get into that push and pull of the mathana. Mathana means churning. Churning of a mind happens. It will get disturbed. It becomes turbulent. So this push and pull, you are torn by this push and pull. These two great forces, one is pushing out, the senses are pushing out our mind, and the sense objects are pulling it out towards itself. So these two forces, push and pull, so we are grinded nicely. We become chutney. You are torn by this push and pull. The sense organs constantly rush towards the enchanting sense objects. The eye courts beautiful sights. The ear yearns for pleasing sounds. The nose desires sweet smells. The tongue craves for flavor. The skin wants pleasant touches. With these constant demands, the senses become turbulent. So just one sense can disturb us with the sense objects. If you take the eye, so the eye courts beautiful sights, that itself is enough to disturb us. If five different senses are pushing you outside, your mind outside, and five different sense objects are pulling you outside, so it has become 5 plus 5, 10. So what would be the disturbance caused to the mind? Constantly these sense objects 5 sense objects and 5 different kinds of sense organs are pushing out and pulling it towards itself. So the eye courts beautiful sights, the ear yearns for pleasing sounds, the nose desires sweet smells, the tongue craves for flavor, the skin wants pleasant touches. With these constant demands, the senses become turbulent. They carry away the mind of even a learned person. A strong willed person also can be dragged outside. So they carry away the mind of even a learned person striving on the spiritual path. If you are not striving for spiritual perfection, you are happy with the worldly enjoyments, there will be no much friction. But if you are striving to control the senses, control the mind, if you are striving for spiritual perfection, then the problem is great. If one does not control the senses properly, one can lose control of the mind. The problem does not end here. The mind will in turn carry the intellect away with it. While the mind is going outside, it will carry and disturb the intelligence too. It will carry away the intellect away with it. When the intellect is lost, buddhi, everything is lost. The destruction of the personality is complete now. Now this verse, the 60th verse, specifies the loss of the mind. The next step towards destruction would be the loss of intellect. Now this loss of the intellect is described in detail in the 67th verse. Step by step, Lord Krishna is taking us how if we give our mind to the senses, they take us out, drag out to this world, and then they will drag the intellect and the memory, destroy the memory. How do they do that? So he's explained in the next verses after the 61st and up to 67th. Lord Krishna explains how our intellect is also destroyed. This is stated in the verse 67. The intervening verses take up a different sequence of thought, deliberating on the importance of the intellect in a human mind, human being. The intellect makes a human being the chef or the topmost person of creation. A masterpiece. Without the intellect, he has less power or ability than any mammal. Without the intellect, then we become just like any other animals. But the human intellect alone puts him on the top rung of the ladder of creation. The intellect, therefore, must be carefully preserved to safeguard the personality. Now, the senses are extremely powerful. People remain unaware of their devastating nature and treat them casually. We take it very lightly. They do not know how powerful the senses are. The average person believes he can give up his sensual indulgences anytime he chooses. Now I think people are sitting inside their houses in the lockdown. So they are locked up in their own mind. Now they have to face their senses, they have to face their minds, they have to face all their desires. Rather, we can tell we have to face ourselves. So until we have a controlled mind and senses, our mind is towards spirituality, it's not so easy to face yourself. So now we can't sit quiet in the house. We can't go out because of the pandemic. We may catch the disease, life-threatening disease outside, and now very difficult to face our personality. We can't face ourselves. That's why recently an advocate and also a judge in South Africa came to visit me. They were telling us, the couple were telling us that the violence towards children and women in the house has increased because of this lockdown. They are staying there. So, because they can't face themselves, they are becoming more violent on the children and also on their spouses. It's vice versa too. So, I just read a statement yesterday. Now, we can't face ourselves, we can't stay alone because you can't go out now, no entertainment. So, you have to face yourself. It just becomes so difficult to face yourself. So, the statement, the message was, if you can't face yourself, then think of the people all these days who had to face you in their life. How difficult it was to face your personality, all the people who had to come in contact with you, how difficult it was for them to face you. When you yourself cannot face your personality, you can't stay in the house because you can't go out. So if you cannot face yourself, your mind, your senses in this lockdown, then imagine how it was difficult for the people who were to live with you and face you. It was so difficult because you yourself cannot face yourself. So now that's why it's not so easy to control your mind and senses. Only now we will come to know how important it was earlier to control our mind. If you had trained your mind, if you had trained your senses, it would have been easy for you to face this pandemic. In the lockdown, you could be very happy. You would be the most happiest person. The senses are extremely powerful. People remain unaware of their devastating nature and treat them casually. Now, in this pandemic, in this lockdown, they come to know how important it is to control your senses and mind. The average person believes he can give up his sensual indulgences anytime he chooses. He boasts about his capacity to do so. This verse of Lord Krishna, the 60th verse, is to wake up such deluded people to reality. The mythological portion of the Hindu scriptures give an episode. It comes in many Puranas. What is that? The episode to demonstrate this truth in one of the Puranas, in many Puranas it comes. It is the great sage Vishwamitra, one of the greatest sage who became the Saptarshis also later on. Is also Gotra Pravartaka and also the one who has given the great mantra, the king of the Vedic mantras, the Gayatri mantra or Savitru mantra. So, I'm the Gayatri among the Vedic mantras, Sri Krishna tells. So it is so great Gayatri mantra that is given by none other than Vishwamitra to reach that state, to become a Siya, to become a Rajarshi, to become a Brahmarshi. He had to undergo so much of difficulties. On the path to spiritual perfection, he had to undergo so much of trouble. So on that path, it so happens the great sage Vishwamitra was meditating in the forest. Menaka, a heavenly temptress, was sent to entice him with her dance. Even after years of severe austerity, he fell under enchantment and succumbed to her charms. In reality, Vishwamitra was spiritually fortified enough to resist any worldly temptations. The choice of such a great sage in this story deliberately highlights the devastating power of the senses. It consciously sacrifices the reputation of an eminent sage for the important purpose of educating people on the strength of the senses. If such a great ascetic who had done so much of tapasya, spiritual practice, sadhana for so many years, such a great ascetic can fall so easily, how careful must the average person be with sensual temptations? So that's why Lord Krishna is warning us, do not be casual, do not take it casually, don't lower your alertness. Ramakrishna used to always tell sadhu, savdhan, O spiritual aspirant, always be on your alert. Don't lower your guard. You should be always alert. Sadhu, savdhan. These were the words of Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel. Sadhu, savdhan. Sadhu here can be taken as the person who is striving to get perfection, go forward in spiritual life. Adi Shankaracharya also emphasizes the same truth in his book Viveka Chudamani. He gives examples of 5 different creatures which get destroyed because of their weakness for sensual pleasures. What are those 5 different creatures? All the creatures are tempted, but especially these 5 have been named because it corresponds to the 5 weaknesses of the senses. A moth has a weakness for the sight, eyes, it has multiple eyes. It embraces flame, fire, and perishes because of its weakness for the sight. What about the next animal? The fish. The fish has a weakness for tongue, taste. So it bites the bait of an angler and dies. A deer succumbs to its ear. You can see the rhyming words. The deer to the ear. It has weakness for the sense organ ears. So it succumbs to that. It hears the beating of the drums, runs into the hunter's snares, and dies at its hand. There is also, I have read in the newspaper and other articles, one forest brigand who has been killed by the police was there in the forest. His name was Veerappan. He was in the forests of the Nagarhole, Tamil Nadu forest and Kerala forest. He used to be roaming there and he used to elude the policemen for a long time. So even very strong police force, even semi-military force like thing was to be brought to conquer him. She eluded them for a long time. While he was in the forest, how would he survive? He had all other small spices and rasam powder and other things, but he has to eat something, isn't it? He can't just survive on the roots and shoots and the leaves. So he used to kill the deer and other animals and then eat them. But it's not so easy to go behind the very fast deer and kill it, though he had guns and other weapons. So what would he do to tempt the deer? So the hunters know all these things. So he knew the weakness of this deers for the ear, the sound. So he had very nicely perfected the sound of the female deer. So he used to make the sound of the female deer, mimic it in such a way that the male deer would get attracted to that, the weakness for the ears, and it would come near. Then he used to kill it and eat it. So now this deer succumbs to its ear. It hears the beating of the drums, runs into the hunter's snare and dies at its hand. An elephant, such a big animal, is caught in a pit because of its weakness for touch, sparsha, mating. Now, the other insect which has been given here is the bee. Enters deep into the crevice of a flower and finds itself trapped. Thus, here, a weakness for just one sense organ is enough to destroy that creature, kill that creature. The weakness for just one sense organ is enough to destroy that creature, to kill that creature. If that is the case, in us human beings, we suffer from the weakness of all five sense organs. Then just imagine the condition of human beings, troubled by this push and pull of the senses and the sense objects. That's why Krishna is warning us. Human beings suffer from the weakness for all the five sense organs. This beautiful portrayal of Adi Shankaracharya in the Vivek Chudamani illustrates the helplessness of human beings and cautions them against their abuse or carelessness towards the senses. So we have to be always on the guard. So you can't lower your guard, you can't be careless. So, but nothing to be afraid if you have the grace of the Lord. Even the toughest of the temptations can be overcome if you have devotion. If you surrender to the Lord, it's very easy. So your devotion to the Lord, as you move towards God, ananyas chintayantoma. If you go on thinking, meditating on the Lord intensely, then the Lord can make it easy. He can protect you. So nothing to worry about it. But so what Lord Krishna himself is telling, you should be on the guard. Ramakrishna also used to tell, sadhu, saudhan, be careful about your senses and the mind. Don't succumb. So keep your alertness. So that is what, through this verse, the 60th verse, Lord Krishna is warning the spiritual aspect. That's all. Nothing to be alarmed or nothing to be afraid of. By the grace of the Lord, you can. And it's a constant fight. Life is a constant fight with the nature external and internal. So finally, Satyam Eva Jayate, we will win because we are of the Atmaswarupa. That is the saving factor. We are not the ordinary human ego and other things, but we are in essence the Atman. So that is a saving factor. Though many times we may fall, we may go down, but nothing to worry. We will try again and again and again and win. So that's the speciality. So the turbulent senses, O Kunti, son of Kunti, do violently snatch away the mind of even a wise man who is striving after perfection. Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. These are all truths which every human being, now coming to the ordinary level, that is ordinary human life. Yes, let us think that a person is not spiritually oriented, he is not striving for spiritual life or realization of God. Ordinary people, we want to enjoy this life, we want to get educated. Even for that, even for the ordinary run of the life, like attaining our goals in life, getting good education, working hard, earning more money, living a happy life, healthy life, even then we need this control of the senses and the mind. Even a worldly man who wants sense enjoyments, he can get the best of the sense enjoyments for a long time if he has the control of the senses. So control of the senses and the mind is important even to enjoy this world. So these are all truths which every human being, boy or girl, elderly or young, educated or uneducated, whatever, rich or poor, should know. What is that called? Character development. That's why Swami Vivekananda, while explaining about education, he tells education is not just a collection of information, collection of facts, which we think now in the present day world, we all think that just collecting so much of knowledge, information from the teacher, from the book, from the internet, from our parents and elders itself is education. If that was the case, collection of information was just education, then Swami Vivekananda tells that in libraries which have so much of information would have been better professors. Using the present day example, we can tell that then the hard disks which has gigabytes and megabytes of information would have been the better teachers and professors, intelligent man. Even nowadays, artificial intelligence has come up. So whatever might be the artificial intelligence, the robotics and other things, but even it cannot function without the human being. So human being, maybe with less information, is still the superior one. Why? It's not just collection of education. Something more is there. So that's what it is discussed here. Character building, character development. That's what Swami Vivekananda tells. Education is man making, character building. Man making, character building. The control of the senses, control of the character, development of the character is being discussed here. What is the constitution of the human system? If character building is the goal of education, it should be known by all the students and everybody that the goal of education should be character building. And that is, character building means control of your mind and control of your senses. What is the constitution of human system? What are their characteristics? We should know them. Then we can fare better in any stages of your life, any departments of life. Ignorance is no fun. In this whole physical system, this sensory system of the human being is very, very powerful. So being ignorant of our senses, of our mind, doesn't make you a better person. So now in the legal system, there is a saying, ignorance of law is no excuse. So like that, if you are ignorant of the senses will not forgive you. Rather, they will punish you more. The mind will punish you more. So ignorance of the strength of the senses and what it can cause havoc in your life. If you do not know that, simply because you do not know, don't think that you have escaped from the turbulence of the mind and the senses. So just like that legal saying, ignorance of law is no excuse. Suppose you go to the streets with your vehicle and then you do some mistakes, you cause an accident or something there. Then you're taken to the judge. Then suppose you tell, I didn't know that rules, so I did that mistake. So you will be fined rather more. So if you knew the law and you are committed by mistake, they would have fined you less. But now, because you have gone to the roads without knowing the rules and regulations with your ignorance, so ignorance of law is no excuse. You will be put double fine. So you will be punished doubly. That's why ignorance is also very dangerous. So you should know. That's why Krishna is telling you should know the senses are very dangerous. It can put you into turbulence, your mind into turbulence. Every action comes because of its impulse. So let us know the nature of that sensory system. Yatataha api kaunteya, even though one is struggling to discipline the sensory system, purushasya vipaschitaha, even of the very intelligent, wise person, even such a person finds that the sense organs are dragging him or her. Indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. The powerful sense organs drag away the mind of even a wise man. That is the nature of the sensory organ. In all our books of science, of spirituality, you will find the subject being expounded. This emphasis on sense restraint has no meaning if the human being's personality ends with only our body, sense organ, and the mind. That becomes more important when you strive to become a better personality, reach higher and higher goals, subtler and subtler goals. This is the position of the materialistic philosophy now current in modern Western culture, but this becomes irrelevant when the depth study of the human being, as done by Vedanta, reveals a luminous and free reality of the Atman in every human being. So, in Manusmriti, one of the Smritis, there are so many Smritis. So, in Manusmriti, there is this beautiful observation. What is that? Balavan Indriyagramo. Balavan Indriyagramo. The entire sensory system is very powerful. So Manusmriti states, Balavan Indriyagramo. The entire sensory system is very powerful. Vidvamsamapi karshati. Vidvamsamapi karshati. They carry away even a vidwan or a very learned person too. That is the warning given. Vedanta proclaims that humanity's inner journey takes one to something real and profound. Therefore, we need this control and discipline of sensory energy. In any character formation, a measure of discipline of sensory energy is essential wherever you go, whichever field you are in, whichever stages of life you are in. So, this disciplining of the senses and the mind is very, very essential. Otherwise, there is no character formation at all. So, there is no character formation at all. This attraction of the senses for the sense objects implanted in us, even from the animal stage onwards, in the world of Maya in which we all live. We have to reckon with that Maya. So, we know that Chandi or Durga Saptashati or Devi Mahatmyam. So, one of the mystical books dealing with God as Mother, Divine Mother, you find this utterance. What is that verse or utterance of that Devi Mahatmyam? Gnaninaamapi chetamsi Devi Bhagavati hi sa baladakarshya mohaya mahamaya prayachati. Mahamaya, the supreme Maya, which is described by Adi Shankaracharya in his Viveka Chudamani, verse 109, as Mahadbhuta Anirvachaniya Rupa. Mahamaya is described by Shankaracharya as Mahadbhuta, surprising, and Anirvachaniya Rupa, indescribable. It's a great wonder and indeterminable. It is the ego of this, what you get in modern quantum physics, states our Revered Ranganathanandaji Maharaj, one of the presidents of the Ramakrishna order. He tells that it is the ego of this, what you get in modern quantum physics as Heisenberg's principle of uncertainty when consciousness is added to it. So the same thing about Maya, Mahadbhuta Anirvachaniya Rupa, is a great, wonderful, and indeterminable. So that echo of that can be found in the modern quantum physics as Heisenberg's principle of uncertainty when consciousness is added to it. It is that which drags away even the minds of the jnanis, the knowledgeable people too. Ranganathanji Maharaj is telling about that. Knowledgeable person too. That Maya is the same as the primordial divine mother Adya Shakti, who exercises, as explained by Sri Ramakrishna, two types of Maya Shakti. What is that two type of Maya Shakti? One, Avidya Shakti, dragging down power. Another, Vidya Shakti, power which lifts up. We sometimes hear of very highly developed people committing big blunders because at that moment they came under the power of this Avidya Shakti of Maya. Very often you find this happening in society too. So the language is be aware. Awakening is necessary. Alertness of mind is very, very necessary. That's why it's a forewarning, that's all. Nothing to fear. But Ramakrishna tells, now this Mahamaya is like the dog. Mahamaya is compared by Sri Ramakrishna as the dog in the house. And what is the Lord God compared to the owner of the dog? So this Mahamaya, the deluding power, is like the dog, and the master of the dog is the Lord. So there is Lord and his power, Mahamaya. So God's power is this Mahamaya. So Ramakrishna giving this example that Mahamaya as the dog and the owner of the dog, the Lord. If you go directly, that Mahamaya or the dog will attack you and try to bark at you and harm you. But if you befriend the owner of the dog, and if the owner of the dog stops the dog not to harm that person who has come, he is my guest, he is my friend, then the dog will keep quiet. It will not harm that person. Likewise, if you befriend the Lord, befriending is if you meditate, if you think, if you have devotion towards the Lord, then the owner of this Mahamaya or the dog will not allow that Mahamaya to delude you or put you into trouble. These are the words of Sri Ramakrishna. So, with the help of the Lord, with your devotion, you can easily overcome them. But you should not lower your guard, because Lord, the Master, the Lord Himself is telling that. So, awakening is necessary, alertness of the mind is necessary. It is just like one example can be given. The mountain climbers, mountaineers, they're going upward, they're carrying so many things on the back, the oxygen cylinder, food material, tent, so many other things will be there, heavy things. So they have to be climbing upwards like this, going up. So it's a very arduous, it is very difficult task going up, so much of weight behind. As you go up, the oxygen reduces, oxygen level in the atmosphere reduces, so it becomes much more difficult. And it is not a plain walking, you have to go up, and there will be so many other difficulties, blowing of the wind, the cold temperature, and also because everywhere it is ice and ice, so that the ultraviolet rays and all the sun rays will be reflected, and that may hit your eyes and you may lose your power. So you have to put the protective gear or the mechanism of the glass which will prevent the ultraviolet rays. So many other things. So with all that, you have to moving up. So while going upwards, climbing the mountain, there is no thing called taking rest or stopping. If you stop, if you don't go forward, what will happen is the weight itself, the weight on your back and the gravitation power. First of all, you have the weight on the back and also the gravitation power because you are in the upward gradient. So that weight and the gravity will pull you down. So you have to be constantly on the alert and you should be moving. So only if you go to some place where there is some flat surface, then only you can rest. So you should not rest while going up in this posture, because the weight and the gravity will pull you, so you should be constantly moving. So the mountaineers are trained in that. So likewise here too, this life for striving for perfection and spiritual attainment, The weight of our sins and the attraction of all the this samskaras and the vasanas is on our back. All that papa karmas which you have done, it will be pulling boja, it is called the weight, pulling down. And so many other things, the gravity, the senses will be pulling down. So many other external factors will be there. So you have to be constantly marching towards God. You should be constantly meditating and thinking of God, and you should be on the alert. Then only it cannot pull you down. So the mountaineer or the person who is climbing the mountain should be always moving. He should not stop. Only when there is some place where there is some stable place, there only he cannot stop. While on the gradient, he has to be moving forward. So if he takes rest, then the weight will pull him down. So likewise, here, Lord Krishna is telling on this move, on this journey towards perfection, to realize God, to become a higher being, then your alertness and your awakening is very, very necessary. Alertness of the mind is necessary. We are dealing with so many forces within. Those forces can consume us. Let us control them, discipline them, then continue our journey to the highest level of perfection. You keep the mind in a good situation. The senses will carry it to a bad situation. Indriyas, that is the senses, have that power. So, reckon with it. Now this shloka, this verse, the 60th verse, and also the other shlokas which are coming later, 64 and 67, are going to tell us what we should do then. When the mind is troubling, when the indriyas are troubling, how are we to overcome? Now Krishna gives us that step by step, gradual way of controlling the senses. He's going to teach us. He's going to take us through that. So that's why I told this Bhagavad Gita is nothing but study of human psychology, supersensuous mind, how to control the mind. So now you can have all your senses working among the sense objects, no need to fear. Provided you are the master, provided you develop the discipline of these psychic energies within you. If you don't do so, your life will suffer shipwreck in this world. So the boat can be taken into turbulence and it can be drowned. There will be shipwreck. So this, if you don't control your mind, if you don't control your senses, your life will suffer shipwreck in this world. Two great verses are coming immediately after this now. We are not asked to leave aside our sensory system or the sense objects, but not that you should then control and close off, cut off yourself from all the sense objects and the external world. That is not Lord Krishna is telling us. So in the next verses, Krishna is guiding us. We are not asked to leave aside our sensory system or the sense objects, but learn how to handle them carefully. That's all. Lord Krishna is guiding us how to handle them carefully and deal with the external sense objects. So that is being taught here. Not to cut off, not to run away. Escapism is not taught. Lord Krishna always is very practical. He's always telling, fight, Arjuna, fight with the external forces. He never tells, go run away. Arjuna wanted to run away. So it is not escapism. He's not asking you to shut all the indriyas. No. How to control it, discipline it, and go and face all the sense objects, the external factors and the forces. So that's what Lord Krishna is teaching in this verse and the next other verse 2 up to 67 verse. Two great verses are coming immediately after. We are not asked to leave aside our sensory system or the sense objects, but learn how to handle them. Let it not be that you are trying to catch a sensory object, but the sensory object caught you by the neck. Now you should know how to catch the sensory object. The obverse should not happen. The sensory object should not catch you by the neck. You should learn how to handle them. So that should not be so. You should be the master. There is a saying, which is told by none other than Sri Ramakrishna himself in Hindi. What is that saying? Kambal chodta hai. Somebody saw in the floodwater a blanket-like thing floating. There were two sadhus living in the Himalayas. This is a story told by Sri Ramakrishna. So they were living in the Himalayas. They had blankets. But one of the sadhus saw there was one blanket flowing in the Ganga, in the river, in the current. So he was a little bit greedy. He thought, even though he had the blanket, let me have that. It may be useful for some other time. So even though other sadhus stopped him, do not do that. He jumped into the river, went to that blanket and caught hold of that blanket. Then after some time, he cannot come out of that. He is also floating in the current and the blanket is dragging him. Now the sadhu is telling him, come away, bring that blanket and come away. No, I can't. कंबल मुझको लेकर जा रहा है. The blanket is taking me away. Then the other sadhu shouted in Hindi, छोड़ दो कंबल को छोड़ दो. Leave that blanket. Then the sadhu there replied, there's the story of Sri Ramakrishna in the gospel, it comes. मैंने कंबल को छोड़ दिया किंतु कंबल नहीं छोड़ता है. I have given up the blanket now, but the blanket has caught hold of me. So what was that? It was a bear, a sloth bear, or what is that? So it had fallen into the river and it was floating. It was being dragged by the current. So this sadhu, this person confused it for a blanket. Because of his greed, no control, he went and caught hold of it, thinking that it's a blanket, though he had a blanket. Now that bear, that sloth bear, which was now drowning in water and being dragged by the current, caught hold of him. Now he wants to give up that, but the bear is not allowing him to leave. So that is the usage. Kambal छोड़ता नहीं. मैंने कंबल को छोड़ दिया किंतु कंबल नहीं छोड़ता. So that is the saying. Somebody saw in the flood water a blanket-like thing floating. He thought it was a good blanket. He started towards it to obtain it. The people on the bank were waiting. He is not coming back. They said, leave it. No, it doesn't leave me. Come away. I cannot come because it was a bear and it had caught hold of him. So kambal chorta nahi. The kambal does not leave me. So you should catch hold of the senses and the sense objects. The sense objects and the sense should not catch hold of you by the collar or by the neck and control you. You should be the master of the senses. Rather now the sense objects and the mind has become your master and you have become its slave. That kambal does not leave me, the blanket is not leaving me. That's the story told by Sri Ramakrishna in the gospel. So that's an important thing which you have learned. That is all what Vedanta teaches humanity to achieve as the goal of human evolution, spiritual freedom. Now, Vivekananda says again and again, work like a master and not like a slave. If horses draw your carriage to wherever the horses want it to go, you become a helpless victim. You are the rider, but you are not free. Don't be so. So now Krishna, through the next verses, he will help us how to control these sense organs. What is the nature of the sense organs? How does it take us? How the turbulence and other things, so very scientifically, very nice way, Krishna lays it threadbare. Whole thing he opens up. The secret is given of how to control the mind, how the mind will go and how will it tempt. All those things so nicely Krishna is explaining about that in the next slokas. But we have to go in detail. But to make a deeper study of this verse itself, maybe we may have to take even 1 or 2 more classes or hours to study this particular verse. Then we will go to the next verse because it's very, very practical and very important, not only for our spiritual life, but for any state of our life. It is very, very important. So we shall make a very deeper study of this verse. So the same verse, that is the 60th verse, will continue in the next class. Maybe we have to take 2 more classes. So today, because we have completed our time, we will end this. Before that, we shall make some announcement. That is, tomorrow morning, that is Thursday and Friday, we have the Great Master Sri Ramakrishna, Life of Sri Ramakrishna, written by Shardanandaji Maharaj, one of the direct disciples. South African time, that is 6:30, and Indian time it is 10 o'clock. Then Saturday we have again Bhagavad Gita class at the same time. So it's the 19th or the 20th verse also will be taken up, the second chapter. Then Sunday and Monday again in the morning, early morning, the same time, there will be the study of Great Master, Life of Sri Ramakrishna. Sunday at 9:30 in the morning AM, we have the Hinduism classes for children. So children from different part of the globe, from Germany, from England, from Muscat, Oman, and from India, South Africa, they all attend that classes. So Hinduism, different aspects of Hinduism are taught to the children. Not only that, we're teaching Sanskrit alphabets and some other words and other things in the Sanskrit language too. Yoga also will be taught. So all this program will be there for the children. Then in the evening we have the satsang, and Monday evening we have the science of worship, significance of worship discussion. Tuesday we have the Vivek Chudamani, written by Sri Shankaracharya, the question of discrimination. All are welcome to this discussion. I think there are some questions. When the senses are distracted and the mind is disturbed, can Swamiji please share methods to regain control of mind and senses? Thank you. Now, when the senses are distracted and the mind is disturbed, now Krishna is taking us through before prevention is better than cure. Now you are asking, once we are into that mode of destruction and they are distraction and the senses have taken control, now we are in the midst of the trouble. So how to overcome it? So there are so many methods. So using our memory, using our intelligence, and also praying to Lord. That's why the Guru has given us the japa. So we have to repeat it every day and our mind will get strengthened. It becomes purer and purer. So at that time, if we can take the name of the Lord, pray to the Lord, prayer to the Lord. And also, if you are, this is by the devotional method, is by praying to the Lord and by taking the name of the Lord. The powerful name of the Lord can protect you and take you out of that distraction and also the clutches of the senses. And suppose you are Gnani, a person of intellect, and you are going through the process of Gnana Marga, the Sankhya Marga, then the process will be different to come out of that. So thinking of the Atman, the nature of the Atman, the Atmagnana, the Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. So all those things, thinking back, reminding back that verses, repeating that verses, just like from the Bhagavad Gita, you can chant that whatever these verses if you have memorized it. So that memory of those teachings of your Guru, teachings of the scriptures can help you. Then there is the other path, that is the Karma Yoga, whereby you have done a lot of Karma Yoga, good work for others. So when you are in this trouble, so if you think of the welfare of others, then again doing more work, the Karma Yoga, that also can put you out, because you lose that ego. Because the more selfish we are easily caught hold of by these senses. So by doing the Karma Yoga, thinking of the welfare of the others and other things, So again, you can loosen the grip of the senses over you. Unselfishness can do that. So there is the Raj Yoga. Then through the Raj Yoga, that method of Raj Yoga, if you are practicing that, there are so many other methods in Raj Yoga to control the mind, to come out of that. There are so many other methods. The important method is the meditation. Meditation in Raj Yoga, so many varieties of meditation have been given there to come out of that. There is also a statement in Raj Yoga, Vitarka Badane Pratipaksha Bhavanam. That is the method. What is Vitarka Badane? Suppose the senses are troubling you, you are in difficulty, you are in the, we call in the turbulent waves of this, they caught hold of you, then that is called Vitarka Badane. Then what is to be done? Raj Yoga teaches us, Patanjali Maharshi, Pratipaksha Bhavanam. Give it opposite, strong thoughts, positive thoughts to it. Give it, bombard the mind with positive thoughts, strong thoughts, thoughts of the God, thoughts of the great people, all those things. So bombard that with good thoughts, positive thoughts. So that is told by Raj Yoga. Like that, there are so many methods. Easiest is Bhakti Marga, praying to the Lord, prayer to the Lord, pray, surrendering yourself to the Lord. The Guru has given you the mantra, do that japa, that also can take you back out of that turbulence. So this way, so many methods are there. I have told almost all the methods, but I have not got to the details because time doesn't permit me. I think this much has cleared your doubts and also you can easily come out of that. Then Swamiji, how do we get rid of this greed and Maya? So I told that Maya is nothing, just the example is given by Ramakrishna as the dog. The owner is the Lord. If you befriend the owner and if you go closer to the master, then the dog, Maya, it knows, oh, he's my friend of the master and is known to the master, then the dog will not disturb you. Only if you do not know the master, then only the dog, the called Maya, will attack you. So the more you are devoted to the Lord, then the servant or the dog of the Lord, that is Maya, will not disturb you. I have explained that how to overcome this Maya. But the other aspect of the question is how to get rid of greed. So now, earlier also I have mentioned many a times, greed is the faculty of the mind which you want to get these sense objects and other things, wealth and other things more and more and more. The reality is, why do we feel greedy? Why do we want more and more? Whatever is not there is not sufficient for us. We want to get more and more because our nature, our true nature is the infinite nature. Atma Swarupa, Parabrahma Swarupa is infinity. So our true nature is Satchit Ananda, infinite existence, infinite consciousness or knowledge and infinite joy, bliss. But the one which we get the bliss in this world is finite, very little, puny, petty. So just like if a person who is very, very hungry and he has very good appetite, you give him very little food to eat, then that will flare up his hunger and he will get angry and that this. So he wants more food, more food. So your real nature is infinite nature. That's why we get that greed. We get all those things, anger, everything, because our real nature is that these worldly things, joy is giving only little, little, so it will flare up. So the easy way told by Ramakrishna is whatever this low Arishad Varga, the six great enemies which are there in us, internal, the six Kama, Krodha, Mada, Matsarya, Lobha, and Lobha is greed. Is Ramakrishna tells, give a turn towards God, greed towards God. I want to know more and more of Lord, greed for knowing more of Lord, greed for taking the name of the Lord. Japa, I will do millions and billions of time every day. So the worldly person, the businessman who wants to count more and more money, more get profit. So that greed turn towards God. I want to know more and more of God. I want to take the japa more and more. So that is the way you can overcome greed. So turn it towards God. Everything, all kama, krodha, mada, matsarya, lobha, everything. If you give a God worldly tongue, that is called sublimation. You cannot give it up. You should not suppress it. You should not give up ego. but turn it towards God. Everything, turn it towards God, and it will be divinized. So that is because that which is making you greedy is your infinite nature, the infinite joy which is there. So turn it towards God, who is infinity, then it will satiate, it will come down, it will be sublimated. Just like the camphor, there will be no traces of it, there will be no smoke, so it will burn off. That's called sublimation. So all these things will be sublimated, it will go away because you are merging that, you are turning it towards God, it will be divinized. So that is the method which Sri Ramakrishna told, turn it, give a Godward Gita. I think now I will conclude with the prayer with one of the meditation stotra on Gita. Om Mukam karoti vachalam Pankhum langhayate girim Yatkrupatamaham vande Paramanandamadhavam. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.